This is Michael Popok, and you can tell it's time for Legal AF After Dark. We just did the New York trial against Donald Trump 2 ways. First, we talked about the witnesses and the motion practice. Then we talked about why it's the documentary evidence and witnesses related to that are really going to be the last nail in the coffin of Donald Trump, we believe, in front of this jury. It's the checks, not the sex. We break it all down twice a week on Legal AF, the podcast. Join us. You'll find out why we call it that. But here's a clip in the meantime. Judge Merchan, who said during a hearing, I don't know what to do with, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know what to do with you. $1,000 a fine for violations. You got 10 of them. Don't seem to matter to you. That's all I can do under the judiciary law. I've got to seriously consider incarceration and jail time. And Donald Trump goes out and does this thing in front of those bicycle racks where he does imaginary press conferences. I don't think there's anybody really over there. It's just him and a very awkwardly looking Todd Blanche standing next to him, and then goes into court and during Stormy Daniels' testimony starts acting out, only reinforcing, as far as I'm concerned, her credibility and her veracity and her authenticity about the story she's telling. When she tells this very hyper detailed, this very prolix story about a rolled up magazine and Donald Trump's backside, you hear him say out loud, bullshit, so loud that the judge up at the bench heard it. That's to stop the case, call Todd Blanche on the carpet and go, what are we doing? You know, now he's acting out in front of witnesses, which are both intimidating the witnesses potentially and the jurors in full view of the jurors. He used the C word. That's contempt. It's contemptuous. I say contumacious, but the judge is old school. He said contemptuous, which means I'm running out of options here with the fines. The fines aren't working. He just does that Donald Trump sees that as a toll on the road, just a cost of doing business. Talk to me from a prosecutor standpoint, from your standpoint, judgment standpoint, about whether the judge on the next violation, whenever it happens, and it will happen, is going to put Donald Trump in jail. And we've got, of course, our Mayor Adams, former law enforcement, who's already said when he was hit with the question during his media event, he said, oh, well, we're ready for anything at Rikers Island. I'm sure the people at Rikers Island, he actually said in the same breath, we handled Harvey Weinstein. We can handle Donald Trump. And we know the Secret Service, because we reported on it a couple of weeks ago, is in talks just in case Donald Trump steps over the line intentionally or otherwise and gets jailed. What do you think? What do you think? Talk about it.
No, I was just saying the one thing I'm not worried about is New York City's ability to handle Donald Trump. I mean, the fact that we're having a criminal trial in 100 Center Street, which is the criminal court building that I spent my entire career in, and there hasn't been a problem. They are going to trial, not an issue. This is, he's had several trials in federal court, Eugene Carroll, the state court, Judge Engoron. New York City can handle anything, and the corrections can handle it, the police can handle it. So I'm not worried about that. What do I think the judge is going to do if he does it again? The answer is it depends. If Donald Trump does something really egregious, says something that could put the jurors at risk, if he mentions the jury at all, I think then he does put him in. But he has options. He could put him in behind the courtroom. There's a jail cell behind every courtroom in that building. There's this whole internal infrastructure of that whole building that prisoners get brought in through a sally port, and then they go into the innards of the building, and there's this whole Department of Corrections controlled inner workings of the entire building, where there's special elevators and special hallways and jail cells that are behind every single courtroom, because they regularly in that courtroom produce people from jail or prison who have to come to court. And so then they don't come in the back door of the court or the front door of the courtroom. They come in the back door, right? There's a door by where the judge sits. So there's jail cells back there. They're holding cells. They're not meant for overnight stays. So I can imagine a scenario where the judge would put him in for the day, or put him in for an hour, or put him in over lunch. It doesn't have to be overnight. It doesn't have to be whatever. Another option is he could sentence him to jail after he puts it over for sentencing for after the verdict. That's another option. I mean, if I'm the judge, what I'm worried about is causing a mistrial, right? And you don't want to be the cause of a mistrial, or you want to get to a verdict, whatever it is. And so I'd be concerned, for example, that the jury, who isn't supposed to read, and they get charged this, they get told this every single day: don't read anything about this case, don't discuss anything about this case, don't watch TV about this case. I mean, it's kind of hard because it's everywhere, right? It's reported on constantly, like almost like no other case. So if I'm the judge, I'd be thinking, if I put Donald Trump in jail, that's going to be all over the news. There'll be news alerts, right, on people's phones, and the jury's going to see that. And I wouldn't want to prejudice the jury by something I did. So I would do this as a last resort. I might put him on house arrest. That's another option, or or take away his social media privileges, or some, there's different things he can do. Would he put him in for the duration of the trial? I doubt it. Donald Trump has been somewhat reined it in. And I say somewhat, but one of the problems I have with the judge's order is the judge, for the last 4 requests for contempt, he did not find him in contempt with 3 of the 4 postings. He's kind of left open this gray area. Well, if you're going to respond to Michael Cohen, something he says, I will call that political speech, or if that kind of thing. So I don't love that, because it kind of sends the message that he can do these things when it comes to certain people. So depending on what he does, I'm not sure he would put him in. But with the jury, we've talked about this before. That's the third rail for the judge. He has to protect this jury. He has to get a verdict.
Yeah, agreed. And it looks like it's going to be coming up relatively soon. Let's talk just a little bit more about some future witnesses. I'll give you my view on the lead up to Michael Cohen, because we're getting into the Cohen range here. There's a reason, from my perspective as a trial lawyer, Michael Cohen's going towards the end of the trial. It's because the prosecution only benefits from telling the story their way, and also bolstering in advance the credibility of Michael Cohen by having more people not named Michael Cohen say the same thing as Michael Cohen. It corroborates those data points, and it insulates Michael from the eventual motion that, Karen, you mentioned earlier, related to another witness about, well, he's a liar about one thing, he's a liar about everything. They're going to make that motion against Michael. They tried it already. And in the New York Attorney General case where Michael testified, in fact, Judge Engoron made a point in his order of saying, I am going to credit, and I'm not going to apply that rule. I know that rule. I'm not going to apply it to Michael Cohen. I don't feel that I feel he was telling the truth about these particular issues. And so he didn't use that. But you're right. You're going to look for that kind of charge to the jury, as if you're right, and you probably are, that Todd Blanche's big coming out party is going to be taken on. He better do a great job, by the way, for Donald Trump, because, he's putting a lot of his eggs in that basket. But all the things that we've seen leading up to this, there's 3 people in the conspiracy in Trump Tower. 2 of them are going to testify. David Pecker already testified, witness number 1. Jury has already heard all of that. Jury has seen the checks with Michael Cohen's name on it. They've even heard secretly recorded audio of Michael Cohen already before he even gets there. They've already anticipated and done preemptive strikes against the arguments that Michael Cohen, because of his past, because of his criminal issues and his convictions and things that he did or said, is going to come in. They're weighted down by so much baggage that the jury will find him to be not credible. So what we've been watching, parallel to the prosecution and the case against Donald Trump, is the case for Michael Cohen, because they have to use him. Not only do they promise it in the opening, they need him, not on everything. This is like a hymnal. You sing from different pages of the hymnal. They need him to sort of tie the thing together at the end. But because of his past, they want others to go before Michael. Now we're sort of, it's sort of like softening up the jury. It's like I like using boxing metaphors. It's like they're working the body with the jury to soften them up for when Michael Cohen finally comes on. And Michael Cohen's going to come on. It's not going to be this week, probably sometime next week as they wrap. And there'll be some other witnesses that we can sort of anticipate. They've done a good job from the prosecution of doing what I call inside out. Inside witnesses, most of them who don't want to be there but have to tell the truth and have told the truth. That's like Rana Graf, the executive assistant, longtime right-hand person, and the woman who's the head of accounts payable. Nobody's ever heard of and never hear of again, and then Jeff McConney sort of standing in for the disgraced Alan Weisselberg, who's in jail for being the chief financial officer. You got all these inside people. They got the outside people. David Pecker, right? Keith Davidson, the lawyer for a couple of these witnesses. A couple of the targets of the Catch and Kill program. The poor publisher from the national from Random House who had to read out loud all the passages that were so powerful, as you pointed out. Karen and I did a hot take on it with Donald Trump's own words, right? He's got his mind on his money and his money on his mind, right? Count the paper clips, pick up the pennies. This is how you become a billionaire. Donald Trump. That's the same guy that the checks that he signed to Michael Cohen, he didn't know what they were for. He didn't know about the gross up, meaning overpaying Michael Cohen so that when he had to pay income tax on it, it came out of Donald Trump's account, not out of Michael Cohen's account, because it really wasn't income to Michael Cohen. It was reimbursement for laying out the money for Donald Trump to Stormy. I mean, that's the kind of the evidence leading into Michael Cohen, but this kind of inside, outside, right? Interesting, scintillating witnesses you can't keep your eyes off of, like Pecker and Stormy and other ones that you could almost flatline in listening to them, but so critically important because this case is about checks, not sex, right? At the end of the day, leading into Michael Cohen. So I love the way they're doing it. Big pieces of puzzle, right? Of jigsaw puzzle being given to the jury as they stitch it together before their very eyes, before they get to their closing argument off of Michael Cohen and a few more witnesses. You want to critique how do you think the defense is doing so far? Because after the case in chief for the prosecution rests, they say people rest, right? Then the defense has to do something. Now, they've been cross-examining their way through the case. I get that. Do you think the defense calls witnesses, including the big guy, in the second half of when they get the case? And then, of course, at the end, there's a little bit of a rebuttal case by the prosecutors. What do you think the defense does? Who do you think they call as witnesses?
So to answer
how do you think they're doing overall with this jury?
Yeah. So to answer that question first, how do I think they're doing? I think they're doing actually a decent job. The thing that they've done, that they've established, I think fairly well, there's no doubt that a crime occurred. The prosecution's done a brilliant job at that, right? These were false business records. And it's in order to cover up another crime. I think the strongest other crime is actually the tax charge, right? This grossing up of to make a reimbursement look like wages to hide it. I think that's the strongest charge more than the election one, because that's just kind of confusing. I don't know. For whatever reason, in my brain goes to the tax one as the one that there's slam dunk, absolutely a crime has occurred. The thing that the defense has done a great job at is distancing Trump from that crime. And at the end of the day, all the witnesses who have testified, none of them have made Donald Trump have pointed out there's no direct evidence that Donald Trump had any knowledge or intention to falsify the business records. And that's what the crime is, right? He meant to pay Stormy Daniels. He meant to reimburse Michael Cohen. He even meant to lie about what the money was when he paid Michael Cohen back. But so far, there's been no direct evidence that Donald Trump knew that they were going to record it differently in the books and records. That, I think, is unfortunately going to rely on Michael Cohen. who's going to have to provide that direct evidence. Now, there's tons of circumstantial evidence, which is important. But for example, Alan Weisselberg is not testifying. That's a huge hole, right? Donald Trump is probably not going to testify. I originally thought he was going to testify because I know he thinks he's his best spokesperson. He's going to want to say that he had nothing to do with this. But the reason I think ultimately he won't testify is different than what everyone else says. Everyone else says, oh, every defense attorney would say, don't testify. You know, he lies about everything. You can't control him. And there's reasonable doubt here. But the reason I don't think he's going to testify is slightly different. It's because he would have to admit that he'd never had these affairs and he never cheated on Melania. And I don't think he's going to ever go there. And I think it would be clear that he's lying to say that he's not, that he didn't do these things. And so if it's clear that he's lying, then it's game over. So in that regard, I don't think he's going to ultimately testify. But I worry a little bit that that there isn't that direct link because they've corroborated everything else 10 ways to Sunday. I mean, really strong case. But like I said, that one little missing link, and Michael Cohen's going to fill that in, presumably. And but it depends on how Michael Cohen does on the stand. So I think the defense is actually doing a decent job. I think Emile Beauvais is been a really good cross-examiner. He's been effective, and we'll see what they do with Stormy. If I were them cross-examining her, I would, apparently she was giggling and, she hates him. I would try to get under her skin and get her, to kind of implode on the witness stand. We'll see if they're able to do that with her, or if it'll just kind of embolden her even more. We'll see. We'll see. I wish I was in the room for her. Look, Hope Hicks was a great witness. I mean, I was in the room for when she testified and broke down crying.
For the prosecution.
No, I was there for great witness for the prosecution. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm still a prosecutor deep down, but the defense is really but even with Hope Hicks, it's about the election. It wasn't about Melania. They still don't have that missing piece. And so that's what I've been waiting for. And the thing that, there is a little bit of doubt. They're not done proving their case. And I don't know if it's going to be reasonable doubt, but until Michael Cohen testifies, there's a little doubt there. So Michael Cohen is a lot more important than I think people realize, because he's the direct link.
Welcome back. If you like that, you're going to love what we do. Full length, twice a week, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this YouTube channel. We curate the top 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics. We bring it to you that way. Wednesdays, I do it with Karen Friedman Agnifilo, former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office. On Saturdays, I do it with my co-founder, Ben Meiselas. And then we do hot takes like this one, about every hour at the intersection of law and politics. You like lawyers talking about things, they know what they're talking about? Come to the right place. The MeidasTouch channel and Legal AF. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.